What's going on, everybody? This is James Greer, Master Facts Boyce, and you're here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, very special guest. We're here to talk with Tiffany Babb to talk about the Comics Courier, now live on Kickstarter. Obviously, an educational and review essay-driven newspaper that's live right now on Kickstarter for the next couple weeks. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, and I'm sure that everybody, of course, has asked you this pretty introductory question. Um, do what do you feel audiences are lacking in knowing the difference between opinion and judgments when it comes to comics?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have necessarily a big distinction between opinion and judgment. There's like as a reader, you always have your own thoughts, right? You read a book, you think it's good or you think it's bad, or you think it did well for you or you think it didn't.
Yeah,
But I think the big thing that gets kind of muddled up in criticism is because everyone does have an opinion, which is important. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. They feel like they're a professional critic. I think part of that is like social media and there's a lot of really smart people doing cool work on social media.
hmm
But it's become devalued, right? It's like, oh, well, what's a review anyway? Who's this
yeah,
rando telling me what to think? And it's like, as a critic, I'm never trying to tell someone what to think. I'm telling people what I think, and they can decide whether or not that's valuable for them or not. But I practiced a lot and I went to school and I studied this and built up a career in this. And I think that's kind of the bigger muddled bit is people think, well, like anyone could do that, which possibly anyone could if they spent the time and effort on it. But I think there are a lot of people who are amateurs out there who think they're just as good, and they could be. But it is to me like a craft. It's something that you practice and get better at.
true, very true. Now, with this particular Kickstarter, it's pretty much resembling somewhat of a little bit of your work that you did for Panel for Panel.
Yeah.
To where it was like a digital magazine. It had a lot of essays, a lot of reviews to it, and everything like that. What would you say was the motivation for to doing something to where you were an editor at Panel for Panel, and then jumping into something that you wanted to possibly do on your own with Comics Courier?
Yeah, I mean, the panel by panel is it was Haas's brainchild, right? He's Haas Othman It's brilliant editor. And he's a big design guy. So like it looks beautiful and everything. Like he has kind of the ability to do that. I don't. Maybe I'm a brilliant editor. I can't speak to that, but I'm not a brilliant designer. I don't have any background in that. So I needed something that I could do.
Yeah.
And also like doing something online only seemed really, it's a really saturated market online only. So I was like, well, I want to do something in print. I don't know if I'm fancy enough to do a magazine with my own skills. Um, what is something more simple? And I had been a big fan of the Columbus Scribbler out of Columbus, and that's a cool newspaper. It's a free newspaper that some guys put together over there. And I was like, well, what if I do a newspaper? Because newspaper has rules. Like you have a grid. Like I bought all these like guidebooks on how to lay out a newspaper.
Mhm.
And honestly, like most of what I'm doing is literally following like their layouts. It's like, oh, three columns or two columns or whatever. This is how you place an image. And that's like something I can follow instructions,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So like I don't need to have this brilliant design eye. Like the one big thing that I kind of do on my own is the cover, which has honestly has helped me a lot with notes and stuff, just being like, that's off center, or like that font is weirdly larger than that font. Like, what's going on there? And like, I won't even notice because I don't really have an eye for it.
Right.
But yeah, so it's just something that I can do. And like with panel by panel on hiatus, and I had just left my job at Popverse, I was like, well, I want to do something like build some sort of platform of my own, some sort of publication.
hmm
And yeah, I just stumbled across the idea of a newspaper.
Mm. Now, that's a good segue because the newspaper analogy, it's kind of leads to a little bit of synergy out off of two things that you preferably have a heavily invested interest in, and that's baseball and comics.
Yeah.
So, a newspaper format is similar to what you would normally get like in a sports section. Now, with baseball, one of the big things I remember as a child is that when you went into those sports sections, you would see statistics for one, which would pretty much flood three quarters of the page. And then editorials, say if it was spring training, it was something that either a pitcher worked on or better yet, a hitter. Um, Now, when it came down to, like, say, a publication like ICV2, which does a lot of data analysis when it
Mhm.
comes to comics and everything like that. And better yet, what you're doing with Comics Courier, where there's an editorial process for reviews and the essay formats that are basically given, just like how it was for like panel for panel. How would you say there is a particular synergy to what your two loves are?
I mean, I love the idea of a sports section. Now I'm like, how do I put that idea into the next paper? I think part of it is like I'm stealing the aesthetic of the newspaper, obviously. Like I'm really leaning into newspaper vibes. Like some like contemporary newspapers look magaziney or they look
Yeah.
very designish. But I'm like trying to do the old timey font. Last time I did a word search, this time there's going to be a crossword, that kind of stuff. And I would love to steal the idea of a sports section and figure out maybe like I'll get everyone to do like a mini review of like a sports comic or something and have like a quasi sports section. I think that'd be fun. I think hilariously enough, after I just spent all this time talking about how like the internet is saturated, I started my own baseball site. But part of that is like that didn't feel as saturated because the
Mhm.
type of writing I want to do for baseball is similar to the type of writing I want to do for comics. But there's just not that much stuff online for that. Like there's not a lot of interviews with authors of baseball books online. So like I there's more of a niche there as opposed to like there's a lot of websites with interviews with
Yeah.
comic artists and stuff. But I don't know how it intersects, other than the fact that like they're both things I'm really interested in, and I guess they're kind of old timey, aren't they?
They
they're
are.
very they're very old. It's a fun because I'm fairly new to baseball. I've only been into baseball for a couple of years. Also, something I'm blaming on Haas.
Really?
He's the one who dragged me into it. Yeah, he got into baseball, and hilariously, he's in England, and I'm in Southern California, and I'm not that far from Angel Stadium. And
Okay.
that was like when Shohei Ohtani was playing for the Angels. He's like, "You got to go see this guy." I'm like, "Sure, whatever." And like, I like novelty. Like, I'll go try things. So I went. And I was like, "No, baseball. Maybe I'll go to more baseball games." And then I just got really into baseball. And now I have a baseball website. But like I think I got into it in a very much the same way that I got into comics, which like
Mhm.
comics I didn't get into until college, but I got into it really fast.
Okay.
And like suddenly it's like when I find something really as a critic, right? And I'm sure you have this feeling when you find something that interests you, it's like how can I learn as much as I can about this
This is true.
as fast as possible, right? And like for me, I'm not a like I watch current games and stuff, but I'm not a big stats person. Like I'll pay attention to them kind of throughout the season, but I'm not like I don't know every like David Harper from Sketch. He is like knows every single little thing about every single little player. For me, I'm just like I keep an eye on the guys on my team. That's about it. Or like if anyone else is doing something like crazy or interesting. But like for me, what interests me about baseball is like the history of it and kind of like there's a lot of family connections and there's a lot of stuff that's passed down. Like I'm trying to get an interview with Kurt Flood's kids because they run
Wow.
like a
Yeah.
foundation in his name, and I was like, that's really interesting. Or like just my next piece that's coming out next week is going to be on there's a Negro Leagues exhibit down in San Diego,
Mhm.
and like that kind of stuff where it's just like they're talking about like barrier breakers where it's not just like Jackie Robinson. It's like they did a little bit on every single um, black player who like broke the color barrier on their team. So it's 30 players. And I
Mhm.
was like, that's really interesting. Like
That
there's
is interesting.
guys I know of, like famous guys, and then there's guys like no one has ever heard of because they played like one season, like kind of minor and then disappeared, right? So
Mhm.
there's all these stories that we don't know, or like I don't know at least because I'm fairly new to it. And that's kind of like the story aspect is what
Yeah.
draws me more to it. And it's the same way in comics, right?
Yeah.
It's
It's almost
like,
like an immersion process that you
yes,
go through.
it is. It really is. It's just, that's all I read right now is just like baseball books. I just listen to baseball podcasts all day. And then I just soak it in.
Mm. Now, in the first issue, you had a chance to, and I'm talking about the first issue of Comics Courier. You had a chance to uh deal with a love letter for Krakoa, and you even had featured interviews with like Patrick Horvath, who I just read Free for All, and that was
Mhm.
like absolutely fantastic to be a one
Yeah.
shot. I would like, to be honest, I wanted to know more. about the government that created this
Yeah.
gladiator arena kind of out of nowhere. And I felt like everybody has a story about their emotional uh, their emotional charge towards the Krakoa era that happened in Marvel. And everybody kind of has like sort of a disdain for the way
Mhm.
that it's working right now. um, is that like the type of feeling that you wanted to get out of a lot of the people that were creating these essays? And better yet, even doing the reviews that you saw that some people were doing comics that were not very current. There were
Yeah.
some from 10 years ago.
I mean, that's the fun part of being an editor. And that is the fun part of like running your own thing. And like the thing isn't driven by the release schedule is I can tell people they can do whatever they want, right? Like
Right.
I'm in charge now and I can tell everyone like what do you want to write about? So it's
Hmm.
really important to me to have a place because so much of the online space is like what gets you clicks. And what gets you clicks is what's coming up next week, what just came out, or like this is the 10-year anniversary of whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like that's cool and all, but like I write about film quite a bit and I love writing about classic film. And the only like I have a whole calendar of when the 50th anniversary is of this and the 30th anniversary of this, because no one else is gonna let me write about 12 Angry Men, right? Unless
Okay.
there's an anniversary. So I wanted to get rid of that for this publication. And it's an interesting question you asked about like the personal aspect because there's a lot of ways to make great comics criticism and I don't think it always has to be personal, but
Okay.
some of the best stuff is personal, right? Jim's piece on the Krakoa, I think that was really personal and it was really interesting. And then sometimes you can go super analytical and sometimes you can go funny. Like there's so many funny pieces in the first issue. Not Lily's, Douglas's piece was really funny. Dave Baker's piece was really funny. And like I wasn't expecting that. So it's nice to be able to go and do interesting, fresh work and be funny. But then there are other books like Lily's was quite serious and interesting, and then there were the really personal. And I think the whole point of me doing this is so I can get the top notch pieces, like the best pieces I can out of
Yeah.
these writers, and like follow kind of what their passions are and what is kind of in their mind, and just kind of because there's like doing this as work, there's so little opportunity to do what you want to do. You kind of
Sure.
have to follow like what your editor says or what your editor's looking for, and I get that too because I've worked on that side where you have to like you're trying to get your traffic numbers up. But because this is twice a year and because it's Kickstarter funded, like we can do what we want. And
Exactly.
it's been such a blessing, I think, to just let the writers do whatever they want. And it comes like the pieces are such a good mix then too, because there's a bit of a voice to the Comics Courier, I think. Like obviously I have very specific tastes, but like it's also really broad. So even with this new issue, like I've been editing the pieces, like it's a broad batch of not just subject matter, but of writing styles as well.
Oh, wow. Now, does this now differentiate the perspectives between a lot of, I'm going to say, big two mainstream stuff as opposed to a lot of creator owned indie type of titles?
I think it's about the same mix, honestly. There's a couple big two things. There's a piece on Doctor Doom, which Dave Busing wrote, which is hilarious and really interesting. It's about fascism. And there's another piece on Marvel, but I think other than that, I think maybe two or three pieces on the Marvel DC stuff, and the rest is like either indie or on specific creators. The interviews are more. I have an interview with Alex Norris, who does the Oh No comics,
Yep.
and then Brianna Lowenson, who did these beautiful memoirs called Ephemera and Raised by Ghosts, and then this interview with a Drawn and Quarterly editor, Lucia, about like acquiring international books, which I thought was really interesting. So the interviews are shorter this time, but there's three.
Right.
So there's some stuff for the big two, but it's not. It is a good mix. I think it'll be a little bit a little bit of stuff for everyone.
Okay. Do you have a preference?
I
Ask you
read
like what
everything.
you read everything.
I
Got it.
read everything. I don't read as much as a big two right now, just because I've gotten out of the habit of going to the comic book shop. But what I have read is quite good. I think there were a couple of years where things were starting to look pretty rough.
Yeah.
But recently, like I've read a couple like issue ones as they were coming out. I was like, this stuff's good.
Yeah.
Like the comics are looking good now. So I'm pleased with that.
Yeah, I actually had the chance to just to read this one behind me, Assorted Crisis Events, by Dennis Camp, and I felt like, man, I was like, I don't think a lot of comics are actually like jumping into subjects the way that he's doing.
Dennis Camp is great.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, like doing all three because he's got DC with Absolute Martian Manhunter, he's got the Ultimates, and then he's got his creator own comics as well. Uh, do you feel that comic companies, as a business, view critics as a necessary need to be reviewed?
I'm sure they do, especially for marketing purposes.
Hmm.
Um, like obviously Marvel and DC want people to review their books because that's how they sell books sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, I don't often think about how companies think about critics. I think for me, there's quite a big divorce between like the creation aspect and then the criticism aspect. So like
Hmm.
in the same way that I don't care if like the people I'm writing about read the reviews, like if they care about it, sure. If they don't, I don't mind. I'm not writing for them.
Yeah.
In the same way, it's like I don't really think about the companies beyond like maybe I need a copy of this book or like will they send this to me because I need to cover it or will they not? It's less important in comics. I think obviously like if you need to get a review up that day, I'm not a big reviewer anyway. I pretty much don't write reviews anymore. But like if you need to get a review up 3 days before launch date, obviously you need to have a relationship with the
Yeah.
publisher to get the book early. It's more important in movies, I think, because it's just like people really want to read the review before the movie comes out.
Right.
In comics, it's a little like it's still pretty current, but like if you put your review out on release day, I don't think it matters that much. Like you're not going to lose that much traffic to it. But really, I don't review much at all anymore. So yeah, I guess my relationship with the publishers is just like, oh hey, like it's great to get a press release and know what's going on, or like know what books are coming out. But beyond that, I don't really know, or nor do I care what they think about me and my job.
Got you. Now, I guess okay. I'll segue to this because is it more important aside from the comic book companies? Is it more important to get the perspective of the writer and the artist for said books as opposed to the actual company?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
No, what I was saying, like, is it outside of what we just talked about with the comic companies? Would it be more of a resolve for a reviewer to get a better perspective of feedback from an author or a writer as
Oh yeah,
opposed to the company?
I don't care about what the creators. I mean, it's nice if like a creator says, "Hey, thanks for writing that. That was great."
Right.
But like, I'm not writing for them, right? Like, I'm writing for a reader. Um, so they're like again, almost like a neutral party off to the side that like it doesn't matter what they think because they're not the audience.
Right.
So yeah, like I think there's this there are people who think that like critics write for creators or for creators benefit, and it's like no. Like I'm not trying to talk to a creator. Like
Right.
they have editors, they have a company around them to like make them better or whatever, or like guide them or whatever, but like I'm writing for readers.
Okay. Got you. Now, why do you think, or if you do think, that comic journalism is such either a thankless or a thankful business?
Yeah, I mean, there's no money in it. I mean, it's great to have support, which the Courier has support, and I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for people showing up for the Kickstarter.
I-
Like the
I'm a
first,
I'm a sponsor
thank you,
too.
thank you, I appreciate that. Like the first issue, I was just like, what if no one backs? Like, how awful would that be? Like, you don't know, right? The second issue, you're like, oh, at least people know what this is.
Hmm.
Um, but so I'm really grateful that people are coming out for it. But like, it's not like no one's I would guess maybe five people are making a living wage off comics criticism. I certainly am not. Like I do comics criticism, I do the paper, and I do other writing elsewhere, and I sometimes teach, right?
Right.
So it's not like you just, if no one can make a living wage off of it, like you're not getting, you're not like, it's not stable, it's not, and it's not like people, some people appreciate it, but a lot of people crap on it too, which I
Mhm.
find frustrating. Like some creators will for sure, and then fans obviously do too, either for legitimate reasons, which is sometimes comics critics, even though they are professionals, are not the most professional,
Mhm.
possibly because no one's getting paid enough to live off of. But also, like, sometimes it's like BS, like someone disagreed with how someone wrote about a comic. And
Right.
then you're just like, so now this person's getting death threats because they didn't like so and so Superman book. And that's just, I mean, at the end of the day, that's like the stupidest thing in the
Mhm.
world, right? Like, I have friends who've like dealt with like some pretty bad stuff, and it's just like, really, like this is what they have to deal with, is a bunch of like a-holes who are just like, today I'm going to be really pissed off about a Superman book and like make this person's life miserable and like
Yeah.
hound them offline. Um, it's it's rough. And like just working for no money is also rough, or like very little money is also rough. But like people will do it because people are drawn to it and because people want to do it. And that's great. And I'm
Yeah.
really appreciative of all the people who do that kind of work. But it isn't, it is thankless just because there's no money in it and there's a lot of abuse.
True. True. I think I remember. I think it was a couple weeks ago. David Harper had Jonathan Hickman on the show, and I believe the last 10 minutes of the podcast, Jonathan Hickman revealed that his X-Men run was probably the most disapproving creative process that he's gone through.
Wow.
And obviously, people took out the context of that last 10 minutes
Sure.
and started to go on a tirade pointing at Marvel. So it was like all of a sudden here comes all the attacks and everything like that. So I can imagine like um when there's an honest criticism towards something, whether it be the creative process or how a story was written or anything like that, like you've seen creators disappear off of social media
Yeah.
altogether because of the way that things are directed at them, because of certain stylings of how a certain comic book character looked, or
Yeah.
yet how they've been written, and it is pretty much caused them to banish,
Yeah.
which is discerning for a lot of
Yes.
these, for a lot of these creators who pretty much put their own life's interest into loving the art form, doing the medium for what it is, and then creating for those of us that are readers to have these books everywhere,
Yeah.
especially print media, which I know you love print media.
Yes, I do.
I can see behind there.
I have a lot of books behind me.
Yeah, so what exactly do you feel about like this whole age of social media as a whole, and what it essentially does emotionally to creators, not necessarily just based off the reviews themselves, but just basically done off the work that people are
Sure.
putting in.
Yeah. I mean, it's gotten really bad. I mean, there are many layers to this. Like Twitter was such a tool, like for good in comic sales and
In the
even like
beginning.
in
Yeah.
my career.
Hmm.
Like I would never have gotten my job at Popverse if it wasn't for Twitter. I would have never met Haas and worked on panel by panel if it wasn't for Twitter. And yet, like it also, like if you can't use it and like maintain your mental health, you got to get off of it. Like they're made, like these apps are made to make you miserable, pretty much. Miserable and addicted, right?
Right.
So like I highly recommend, if you need to get off of them, get off of them. For me, they've been really useful. Some people are really good at it. Some creators really know how to play the game.
Yeah.
Some creators just can't handle it, and it's not their fault because it's just like you look at the BS they have to deal with, and you're just like, yeah, get off the freaking internet too, you know?
Hmm.
Like it's like I've been very lucky to not have to deal with a bunch of stuff, but I've had to deal with a couple like a couple close call situations, like a couple really nasty emails, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
even that, I was just like, I want to get off the internet now because, like, and it was so rare for me out of all of this, out of all these years. And then I have friends who have to deal with it every week, and I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
like, if I were you, like, I'd be long gone.
Hmm.
So I've been very lucky, and kind of, I honestly I don't know why. It just maybe it's because I'm not writing about specific books, or maybe it's because I'm not publishing in certain places. But I've been really, really lucky to avoid most of that. But I totally understand why people don't touch social media, but it has been such a good tool. And now, honestly, it's not as good of a tool as it was because everyone split up onto different apps, and
Yeah.
like Blue Sky isn't what Twitter was. Like Comics Blue Sky is not Comics Twitter like in its heyday. So I mean, everybody's talking about it, like how do you sell your books now? Even the Courier, like the first time we launched was on Twitter. Now we're on Blue Sky, and I was getting more engagement on Twitter, even though I had, I think, probably fewer followers. But it's just people were on Twitter, and
Yeah.
I don't know if they're on Blue Sky the same amount.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
Outside of people who choose as their, whether it's their hobby or their profession, as doing comics journalism, how do you feel with a lot of creators nowadays doing editorials and reviews themselves, whether it be Substack or certain type of apps or websites like that? Like it's almost like, yeah, I could have you pay attention to some other website to utilize to do a review of my work, but then you have a creator basically creating their own editorials about their work by them,
About their own work.
about their own work.
I think it's interesting. It's like, for me, I'm usually not super into reading that myself because I don't care. It has to be like a really special book for me to care.
Mhm.
But like, sure, why not? Like, I check out some of the newsletters sometimes. Like, I know Kieran Gillen will like put like uh playlists and stuff. It's like, this is my power fantasy playlist. This is what like I was
Right.
listening to. I was listening, writing that, and it's like, it's kind of cool. It's not really my bag, but like, all for it. Like, I mean, it's great marketing for them. It gives people who are interested a peek into like the world of creating a comic, and
True.
that's cool. Like, if they're like, when I mean, it's kind of the world of content creation now, where it's
Yeah.
like every artist has to have an Instagram, like Instagram, be on Instagram shorts, speed painting their paintings, right? That's how they sell their work. And I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, Tiffany, I appreciate you doing this with me. This has been a very, very interesting chat. Of course, Comics Courier has about a couple weeks left, correct?
Yes, we're ending May 31st.
Okay, and I believe there is time for some stretch goals
Yes.
if I'm talking in this Kickstarter language.
Yes, we have one more print coming up. So if we hit, I think it's $9,000, everybody will get this amazing print from this artist named Christine and Liz Santos. And fun fact, she went to high school with me.
Oh, okay.
So she's like, she's an animator now. And I think she has some comics out. And like, we recently reconnected. I was just like, oh my God, we went to high school together. And she's great. So I was like, hey, you should come do a stretch goal print with us. So it's a great print. So if we hit the goal, then every person with like physical package coming to them with the Comics Courier will also get the print.
Excellent. Now, this current issue for Comics Courier, when exactly, for one, when exactly would you expect that to also start arriving in everybody's mailbox? And then since this is a biannual issue, when does issue 3 drop?
Yes. Okay. So I think August, September is when people should be getting their issues. And then issue three, I think, is gonna hit Kickstarter in October if everything goes okay. We were a little late on this one, so I need to kind of push back earlier on that one before falling into the holiday season because people don't shop as much
Hmm.
in November and December because they're shopping for their families.
Yeah.
So I think October again, we're gonna try to make it happen. We'll see. It's a Doing the mail last time was quite a challenge. And there are a lot of little issues, and there have been little issues popping up here this time too. But like, just got to power through. Hopefully, everything will be good and ready for the fall.
Excellent. Now, lastly, what would you say would probably be the best reception that you've got from issue one?
Oh, that's a good question. People like the writing, which I think is great. My favorite bit is when people take pictures of the newspaper out and about. I think that's so cool. A lot of people have done that, like, at a cafe, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and that always makes me happy because I'm like, when you when you're sitting there packaging 500 packages in the middle of the night, you're
Right.
miserable and you're just like, why have I done this to myself? And then you get the stuff out into the world and you have no idea if anyone's reading it. Like,
Right.
it's not like a website. Like, every day I can look at my baseball website and I can see how many people clicked, right? It's
Mhm.
like instant gratification.
Right.
There's none of that with the newspaper. It's just like you have no idea. They're out in the world. Maybe not one single person has picked it up and read it. Maybe people didn't even open the package and threw it in recycling. Like, I don't know, right?
Mhm.
So seeing people do that has been really incredible. And yeah, I've really loved to see that. And then of course people have been really nice about it too. Like,
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of nice emails, which is great. It's so important, I think, to tell hug your local critic, I guess is what I'm saying, because it's such a slog sometimes, especially with a Kickstarter where it's just like so little the time that I put into this thing is the actual like making the newspaper.
Hmm.
So much of it is like all of the other stuff and the paperwork and the ordering and the this and that, all the proofs and whatever. And like, it's the process is so long and so frustrating, but um when you hear that people are enjoying it, when you hear that people are supporting it, like, it's so gratifying.
Good. Well, I gotta say that you've definitely shed a little bit of a light that probably wasn't there for a lot of comics journalists, for those of us that are budding journalists that wanted to get into this field, regardless of how thankful or thankless it might have been. I we thank you
Oh,
for the
thanks.
opportunity to put a spotlight on a lot of, I'm going to say a bunch of creators that wanted to, that not necessarily got the handle of getting their opinions or their work out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And like, that is like why everyone's doing this, right? Is so we can highlight comics criticism, so we can publish people, get people paid, ideally, all
Yeah,
of that. That's the goal, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why the Comics Courier exists.
definitely. All right, Tiffany, thank you. I appreciate this.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So for everybody here at the Facts Project, James Grandmaster Facts Boys, Tiffany Babb, Comics Courier, 2 weeks left on Kickstarter. Go out there and get that. Of course, stretch goals are among us, so you might want to get on top of that now. Thank you again, and we are out.